Okay guys, a quick video today about maintaining the front of our razors, and this probably relates to a lot of different machines out there, especially Polaris brand stuff, but let's just talk about the razor today. I'm a real stickler at greasing my machine. I actually grease it every time I come back from a ride. That way I force out any water, debris that we've collected in the joints, and it also gets the machine ready to ride at the drop of a hat, which we do quite frequently. Okay, done the front A-arm bushing replacement. I use all pure Polaris parts on this, and I know some guys will chime in and say, yeah, but these bushings are relatively cheap, and I've replaced one complete set all the way around, front and rear. But I noticed the front end has been knocking a lot, so I jacked the machine up, doing a midwinter tear down here, trying to see what's going on. And I knew I should have done this last time, but I didn't have the parts, and neither did my Polaris dealer, so this time I was ready. In your bushings, in your A-arms, one on the front, one on the rear of each upper and lower A-arm bushing, these pivot tubes are slid in between and your bushings ride on them. You can see this is a used pivot tube, and if you see the gold anodized or yellow dichromate or whatever this is that they plated this with, I'm going to try to show you a real close-up shot. I'll give you some dimensions, but on the very edge here, where the bushing actually doesn't ride, I've got a difference of 630 thousandths, and I'm doing SAE. I'm not a metric guy. 630 thousandths is the diameter of a brand new pivot tube, and that's about what I have here in the middle, 630 thousandths, because nothing ever rides right there. But on these worn parts that you can see, and all I've done is just wipe the grease off of them. And again, I grease my machine every ride. I've worn out 2 grease guns just greasing this razor. These, we're down to 619 thousandths here, and they're heavily corroded. That's an 11 thousandths of an inch wear. And when you grab your A-arm and you're flexing it back and forth, you know, my A-arm was doing this to exaggerate it. And not only is the pivot bushing worn out, and I know a lot of guys run to the shop and they buy all their brand new bushings and they get home and they just slide these on, and with all that nasty grease and everything that's on there, it feels like a good fit. But when this pivot tube comes out and it sticks out past, actually I can't even get this one past because of that rough edge here on the very edge. You've already got an 11 thousandths worth of slop lined up in your front end. You've made an improvement, but it's not that much. This is one of the original bolts that I pulled out, and unfortunately I cleaned it up with a shop rag and I've kind of filled it in. This bolt is inside this pivot tube. Here's a bolt inside of a brand new pivot tube. And that fits real nice and tight, but when you grease, the grease goes in here and goes east and west and does the inside edge of these bushings, but you never get any grease on that right there. On all of my A-arm bolts except one. Last year I pulled them out and pulled the bolt out, and I took industrial never sees and coated this all down here and put it back in. Those bolts were in good shape. This bolt is so worn that it's even rotted down here near the end. The threads are almost non-existent. So corrosion is getting to this bolt. You can take these bolts out after you undo your lower ball joint out of the bearing carrier knuckle. You can take these bolts out, and after you slide them out part way, you can jack your A-arm, and that bolt will slide down underneath of your plastics on the front. You do not need to remove all the plastic cowling on the front. Tear your machine down. You're doing nothing. It sounds like a big deal, but it's really not. It's about an hour per side. Slide these bolts out and take a really good look at them. All the yellow dichromate that's on here now, it looks real good, but when I went back together, I never seized them, but I don't have to replace those bolts again. Enjoy and live to ride another day, guys.